Faye. I'm Kate.
And I'm Elle.
But who gives a shit, because SJM was allegedly seen with Margot Robbie. I say allegedly because I saw the picture.
There's pictures she was seen.
You can't see her face though, right? Did you see her face?
No, you can't see SJ. Well, you can't see SJM's face.
Yeah.
You can see Margot.
I think that everyone is assuming that it's true because Sarah's husband either liked a post or something about it. So it's like kind of backdoor confirmation. But it has me thinking. I've been thinking all week. I had this work conference, and so I was in panels trying to concentrate, and I just kept thinking about like what they could have been talking about. If it's, maybe they're just friends, because like Margot is a fantasy.
Oh yeah, she's a big fantasy person.
So maybe they're just meeting up as friends, or could Margot be producing an upcoming?
I know she's probably too old, but I kind of see Margot as Aelin.
She would be a great Aelin. I was thinking about that.
She has the right look. She's just a little older.
Yeah. And I hate saying that because I mean, actresses are kind of unfairly, like, you hit a certain age and you're only playing moms, but it's such a major plot point in those books.
They did that with Game of Thrones too, though. Mm-hmm. You know, like all those characters are supposed to be like 13 and like, ugh. Creepy.
That's gross.
And they're definitely like 20-something-year-olds playing them. So yeah, it could still happen.
I wouldn't mind a more mature Aelin. I wouldn't be against it. And I also think she'd be a really good Moor, or maybe even like an Amarantha, like a villain.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of options. I'm assuming it's about producing, because she has their production company. Like I think Saltburn, she was one of the producers on that, or her company. Yeah. Okay. So I think it's exciting. I think that Hulu still has the rights or whatever for ACOTAR. So I don't know if she would be involved in that, or if it would be one of the other series, A Throne of Glass or Crescent City. I don't know.
I would be much more interested in watching Throne of Glass or Crescent City than ACOTAR. I don't know, unless you're going to put a whole lot of money into it.
That's the problem.
They're not going to be able to do much of the smut.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would be interested to see it, but I don't know they could do it justice.
Well, animated, I think, is probably the best option for ACOTAR. I would love to see it, but right, like there would have to be a huge budget. There would have to be like a Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones type budget, and I just don't know if that would happen.
We've got to be able to see all those worlds.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
the different courts.
That would be the courts. That would be the best part of seeing this. Would be seeing this entire world come to life, and it just couldn't be half-ass.
Yeah, and also the males would have to be beautiful. It's the rules.
Oh, it's going to be like when 50 Shades was cast, and everyone was so mad about what was his name, Charlie Hunnam.
Yeah, well, he was attractive, but he didn't look right. But the other guy, not that attractive. What's his name? The Irish one.
Oh, Jamie Dornan.
Dornan,
yeah.
Meh.
Yeah.
I mean, Edward Cullen is supposed to be beautiful too.
You don't think Robert Pattinson's beautiful?
I think he has moments. The rest of it, he's just so like awkward and weird.
Yeah. I don't know. You can't do Henry Cavill for every single role. And he's kind of like aging out of it. Like if Margot's too old, I'd say Henry's probably too old too. Yeah, like these characters are, 300, 500 years old, but
they're all supposed to have these like beautiful jaw lines and these gorgeous like plush lips and these beautiful eyes, and I'm just like, there's very few guys that are pretty enough for that. Yeah,
right. I don't know.
Can't imagine.
I'm excited to see. They did it in public, so like it's not a secret. I don't know if they're trying to like drum
promote
up
something.
Yeah, if it get people excited, or if it really was just like, hey, do you want to go have coffee? We have similar interests, or like we're friends or whatever.
I don't know. I mean, it's all very exciting that this could be going places.
It is. And more exciting news, a friend of mine or ours is she announced the Nashville Fantasy Ball. It's going to be in February of 2025.
Very exciting.
And their Instagram is at Nashville Fantasy Ball if you're interested, and we'll obviously like update people, but we've wanted to go to like a Starfall or something for years. And so for it to be in Nashville, we're very excited.
It's very convenient for us.
It is very convenient. It's going to be like a ACOTAR Deliverance crossover.
I'm like, wait, what?
It's going to be like ball gowns and cowboy boots.
Oh.
Just kidding.
No,
it'll
I'll
just
go
be the ball
shoeless
gowns
first.
But I would love to have a reason to like rent a ball gown.
Yes. Oh my God. I want a Starfall dress.
I do too.
Beautiful, beautiful gown.
I know. I would spend money on that.
I want it covered in crystals. I want my hair done. I want all of it.
Right. I would love to go to another one, but it's just hard. You'd have to travel. Like, there's a really cool looking one in London at an art museum. And I think the Ripped Bodice in Brooklyn is having some kind of event in March.
Oh.
And I was like, is that when we should go to New York and visit? But
the time is upon us.
Yeah, it's literally this month. So I don't know about that. But yeah, I would love to go to an event like that. And I love seeing everyone's pictures, but I have major FOMO when they're like getting ready and they have their gorgeous ball gowns. And
I know. Would there be hot guys there? Are they weird guys?
Well, they have some of them like hire actors.
Okay, I'm
the
listening.
one in London hired some really good looking actors, and they're just walking around with wings, which out of context is so fucking silly. And it's kind of,
I don't care if I'm in the mood, okay?
But yeah, you just have to like roll with it.
This is what we're here for.
Exactly. Yeah, the person they have for Cassie, and I was like, okay.
Hello.
I mean, they have actresses also for all of like the female characters, but not interested. They look great, but that's okay.
I mean, and that's fine. I'm just not there for you. I'm here for them.
Yeah. So I'm very excited about that, and hopefully we can be involved in some way.
That's really exciting. I'll have to see how that goes. I hope that all pans out. We're continuing our House of Flame and Shadow deep dive today with chapters 21 through 25.
And episodes covering the first 20 chapters, as well as House of Earth and Blood and Sky and Breath. That's all on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you wanted to go back, if you need to catch up, like if you're joining for the first time, welcome. We have all of that available, but we also, you can just jump in because anything that is referencing past books or connections to ACOTAR, Throne of Glass, we'll talk about it. I don't think you don't have to go back and listen, but it's available if you want to. And before we get into this episode, we will share our book recommendation. We do that every week. And if you have one that you want to share with us, just send me a message on Instagram. It's at DTFay Podcast. And then our past book recs, I try to keep them on Instagram, and then also our Goodreads profile.
Okay, so I'm going to do the book rec today. And I think I mentioned it briefly last week when I was reading it. The series is called Coven of Bones by Harper L. Woods. And we've discussed this author before. She has some really great fantasy series. I'm a little disappointed this book series is only 2 books. But the way the second book ended, it felt like there was still potential for the series to continue. It was kind of a cliffhanger. So I don't know if there's more in the future. They just haven't been listed yet, but still a really fun read. And if there's only 2 books, you're not going to feel like totally lost that it dropped off in the middle of the series.
And she did, what's the other one I like of hers about the veil? Something and something? Veil? Beyond the Veil? I'm going to look it up. You do your book.
I think it's Beyond the Veil. Who is Ruin of Roses? Is that KF Breen?
That's KF Breen.
Okay.
I entered a contest.
What Lies Beyond the Veil?
What Lies Beyond the
Veil?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
I didn't
love
look this up,
that
but I'm pretty sure it's her.
And that one is another, like, there's something going on with the Witchwalker series, something going on between the author and the publishing company.
Ooh.
And there's something going on also with What Lies Beyond the Veil because the date keeps getting pushed.
Oh.
And she's uploading like little sections onto her Patreon, which am I supposed to also be like pay money to be on your Patreon to read your books in addition to buying your books? I can't tell what's going on.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. I mean, maybe there's another book in this series in the works, but everything's just delayed. Because honestly, the way the second book ends, this could go in 2 different directions, and I'm fully expecting more books to come. So this series is about witches, and it's set in a present-day world where naturally mortals don't know witches exist. And the witches also are accompanied by these vampire-like creatures called vessels.
Okay.
They're not actually vampires. The witches created them. It's like, witches can create a golem from clay and kind of like puppet it. It's like they created that and then added the souls of demons.
Interesting.
So the demons actually have bodies locked away in the underworld, and their souls are trapped in these like vessels, which are naturally beautiful and require blood.
Obviously.
Only witches' blood. So they drink from the witches. So it's kind of intense.
Is it spicy?
Yes.
Ew. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Worth it. So the witches themselves are actually created by Lucifer. It's interesting because they technically originate during the Salem witch trials. And I think her name is Charlotte Hecuba. Interesting last name,
Hecuba.
right? She's not actually a witch, but she's being hunted by the townspeople because they're hunting down witches in Salem. And she prays to Lucifer for help. And then that's when the first witch is born, because he works with her and grants her powers and gives her this really strong like necromancy gift. And then from there they have different like founding families for the witches, and they have really interesting like power sources. So their power is called source, and like green witches draw from the earth, black witches draw from death and bones, white witches draw from power crystals, red witches draw from blood, etc.
That's really unique. I like that. It's not
kind
something. Actually, we have seen something like that before. The Fey
Yeah.
Isles book,
I was trying to think.
right?
No, the Fey Isles were based on actual colors of
Okay.
things. But yeah, so no, there's another book we talked about with witches and source, and off the top of my head, I can't think of what it is.
So,
I
like,
think it
it's
was
a
the Bone Witch.
Oh, okay.
It's actually the Bone Witch series, because they draw from bones or from like blood or something.
So it's like a twist, but it's
Yeah.
interesting.
But it's really interesting. And our main character, Willow, this is all set in present day in New England. And suddenly can't remember which state. I think she's in Vermont or Maine. But she knows she's a witch, and she's been trained to be a witch, but she's been hidden from the other witches for her whole life, because at one point there was an academy for witches where they all went to school and had training, but it closed about 50 years ago after a massacre. And Willow's mother was a witch that fled the witch community, faked her death, ran away. Willow's father is a witch that was raised in hiding, so the Covenant doesn't even know about him. So the Covenant is their like reigning body.
Okay.
And the Covenant has decided that it's time to reopen this academy. So Willow's parents have been training her so that once the school reopens, she can go in there and get revenge for her aunt who was killed during the massacre. And
they're sending their daughter in for the revenge.
Like her whole life she's been trained to be a weapon. And the dean of the school is a vessel, which is interesting choice.
So they're
naturally he's a beautiful vessel.
They're controlled by the witches.
They are separate. It's wild, and I don't know how well it's truly explained. They are separate. They're created by the witches, and somewhere things go sideways, like they're betrayed by the witches somehow, but they still have to like live together because they have to feed off the witches.
Okay.
So it's like
that kind of reminds me of
a parasitic relationship.
Oh yeah.
It's not great.
It reminds me of Black Dagger, how they can only feed off of each other.
Yeah. So there's I guess a trigger warning is that there's technically some forced feeding, but at the same time they also have
I love that. I mean, I don't know what that says about me, but now I'm even
Zodiac
more
Academy had way worse forced feeding. But
I was into that too.
They do have to consent to it at the same time. So kind of hard to say. But so this vessel who's in charge of the school, Willow's mom dies in the beginning of the book. So everything that was like protecting her and hiding her drops. So he like shows up at her door like, hey, we need you.
Yeah.
You have to come with me. And the Covenants decided we're going to reopen the school. So she gets dropped into all this turmoil. Why do these vessels exist? What is this relationship? Why is it now strained? What's happened to the witches over the last 50 years? Things aren't great. Also, are we going to get our revenge? And yes, there's plenty of hot sex.
Is it who are the love interest?
Willow, our main character, and the dean.
The dean?
Nice.
But it's not like a reverse harem type. Like, are there multiple love interests?
No, I wish there were. I was like, because like when I found this book, I had been searching like reverse harem. So I was like, maybe it's not, but it is still very sexy.
And you are reading right now a reverse harem, right?
Well, potentially. That's another one.
A potential reverse harem.
I started it. I didn't realize there's only one book out. So like, I really enjoy it and I'm annoyed, but the second book comes out in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And there's like a dragon shifter and like lots of hot sex. And then they end up in Fairy. This is my current book series. They end up in Fairy, or like the Fey world. And suddenly there's 4 more dragon shifters that are side-eyeing her like you and me. Yeah. So I don't know. They're all brothers as well. So it's.
Oh, that's kind of weird.
Well, nothing's happened yet. They're hot. So I don't know.
What is that one called? I saw it on, I opened the Kindle and I'm always like, I wonder who's reading this. It's usually you.
Gilded something.
Yeah.
Gilded Wings, a dragon
Gilded
shifter
Wings.
romance.
Dragons are very in right now. I mean, obviously Fourth Wing, but I've seen a lot of new
Well,
books
Facebook is
focusing.
stalking me because it was like literally all in my news feed. And I was like, haha, that's funny. It was a different dragon shifter reverse harem series
I know sometimes
from this author. And I was like, oh my God, have I read that?
I'll be
have.
scrolling through Facebook and it'll be ridiculous ads. And I'm sure other people would be like, oh my God, I've been hacked, or like, what is this? But I'm like, oh, screenshot.
Can you not do that while I'm at work?
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
looking at Facebook during a break and then all of a sudden there's like smut on the page. I'm like, I don't know what happened. Wasn't me. So
we are who we are.
I will let you guys
and the
know.
algorithm has picked up on it.
I'm very obvious.
Well, luckily, I was able to finish all of the chapters yesterday.
Yay.
I had someone send me a message asking about the work convention, which was really nice, how it went. It was a nightmare. Every day is worse than the last. Every day is the worst day of my life. It was fine. It was just like a lot of forced interaction. And I mean, the small talk.
That's draining.
And it's draining. Yeah. So I'm happy to be back talking about books, as I can't really talk about it in a professional setting.
What do you mean?
Yeah, exactly. We're dropped back into Selene's lore dump in chapter 21. So like last week, we're going to bullet point and circle back to discuss the bigger revelations and confirmations. And via hologram, which we've talked about being really, really convenient, the hologram, the magic bean,
everything all at once just being laid
it's a
out
little
in front of
too
us.
easy. It's a little, I don't want to say it's lazy because there's nothing about, SJM's writing that's lazy, but it's,
well, she gives all of the answers at once, like all these answers we've been asking about.
A hologram, a society, a world that doesn't have cell phones or any of that, just all of a sudden has. And I know that it could be magic, but it still is. It's more technology to me. But via hologram, Silene continues sharing Thea's story, and it's a very quick. I'll give a very quick recap. Thea and I think it's Finn. I say this every week, but I know it looks like Theon, but Thea and Finn overthrew the Daglin / Asteri, who ruled over the Prythian Fae for 5,000 years. Thea gave birth to 2 daughters, Helena and Silene, and she claimed the prison island for the Dust Court. Thea's villain origin story began when Finn wanted Helena, not the High Queen, to succeed him, so Thea and her general Peleus plotted to kill him. And I go back and forth on this about whether he was... if I had helped overthrow the Daglin and then my husband was like, actually, you're not going to succeed me, I would also be upset. I'd be a little pissed. But then it makes me wonder if he saw something in her. And the more we learn about Helena, about, she actually does stay behind with her people. It's like maybe there was something in Helena that would have been a better leader.
That or he was able to see something in Thea's character.
Yeah.
About
we'll never know, I guess. But
how hungry she was acting.
Right. And I don't know if her being close to the Dread Trove corrupt you, I wonder. Or
I mean, maybe to an extent, because even when Nesta puts on the death mask, it kind of takes her over and they have to try to bring her back. Like, remember your mate, remember those that are waiting for you. Think of Nyx. So
I wonder if that would be a plot point in the next ACOTAR book of it, like changing personalities. I don't know. But Thea and
you're dreaming big, and I don't know if we're gonna get it based on the way that she's written some of this.
But Thea and her General Peleus plots to kill the High King. So Thea goes from liberator to conqueror, and she enters Midgard, and she is welcomed by none other than Rigulus himself, who she somehow does not recognize.
No, she's like, look at this Fae child. He's so nice.
Thanks, Fae teenager.
Other Fae, including those from Throne of Glass who evolved into shifters, invaded Midgard. Upon learning the truth about Rigulus and the fake Fae, Thea opened a portal to a world who had previously defeated the Daglin, which is hell, and the door was opened by Adis himself.
And that brings us up to speed. And we'll get into chapter 21. We learn more about Adis. He was assigned to hunt for the Asteri, I'm assuming by Apollyon, ever since they failed to conquer hell. And we haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm assuming that other princes were sent other places with this.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I'm not going to say because we're not there yet, and I don't actually know that. But so Adis and Thea
who were also lovers. Which was hinted at, I think, in the first 2 books.
But even more than lovers, they were mates.
Wow.
Which, I mean,
that's big.
Poor Finn.
Look, Finn was over it, to be fair. That's not fair.
In desperate need of more troops, Thea meets with the humans, the ones that she's been slaughtering and conquering and enslaving this entire time. And she meets them at their last stronghold, Parthos.
The humans, probably a little smugly, reveal the Asteri have infected the water with a parasite that warps magic and sucks immortals dry if they opt out of the drop.
And the drop is basically what was happening in Prythian on steroids. But they've kind of made it like...
It's like a concentrated version of what was happening. Because in Prythian, I think they were just giving a tithe.
Yeah.
And the drop, they're like, do it all at once.
Yeah, they kind of made it more like a medical, something that has to happen, like just part of like the rite of passage when you hit a certain age. The Asteri honestly were really brilliant in a lot of ways of how they approach Midgard versus how they approach Prythian.
They definitely learned from their mistakes.
Mm-hmm. And it only takes one sip of water for the Fae to be infected. So they're all fucked. Like, even if Thea and everyone got back to Prythian, they are already infected. They've already drank the water, I'm assuming. But that raises the question of why Silene was able to go back to Prythian and live a long life with her magic. I don't truly understand. If she drank the water in Midgard and escaped, wasn't she already infected with this parasite?
Yeah, how does she have that power left?
I don't know. I don't know if that's a plot hole or I'm just stupid. Or both.
I don't know. There may be some answers coming to give us a little bit more information.
Yeah.
Thea gathers an army of 10,000 Fae, and Adis brought 50,000 from Hell, but it wasn't enough to take on the Peleus-led forces who attacked in the dead of night.
While Adis returned to Hell to recruit more soldiers, Thea accepted the inevitable, and she took her daughters to the place where they'd first entered Midgard, and she gives Helena the horn and Silene the harp and dagger, and she keeps the star sword for herself.
The original plan was to go back to Prythian using the harp and horn, gather an army and return, but there simply isn't time.
So she tells her daughters to play the horn and harp and get out of Midgard before Peleus, who's been crowned Prince of the Fae by Rigulus, can forcibly wed to legitimize himself, which is something that happened a lot in history, like when someone conquered a new country and they would wed one of the royalty members of
try to join the groups together, and you're like, yeah, I don't feel good about that.
Yeah.
Which we know is exactly what happens to say Helena.
Helena?
I was going to say Helena.
I say Helena because of Elena, but also, I mean, it could be Helena. Like,
I don't know. I think of Helena Bonham Carter.
That's not who I want cast in this role.
What? She could be okay in some of these. But yeah, I don't know. Tomato, tomato, I guess.
We'll just... You say that you live your truth, I'll live my truth.
Sorry.
And we rarely listen to audiobooks, which I'm sure a lot more people listen and they know how to read it. But yeah, we're doing our best.
This is how it is for me. It's in my head this way.
But now we know why Helena remained and the unnamed sister Silene disappeared, and why the horn and the star sword remained in Midgard, and the dagger and the harp, how they ended up back in Prythian.
Thea plucks a low string on the harp, and an 8-pointed star like the one on Bryce's chest emerges from her chest, splitting into 3 balls of light, with one drifting to Silene, one to Helena, and the final back to Thea.
The harp can not only move its bearer, but it can also move things, including magic, from one soul to another.
That's wild.
It is wild. Gwydion, aka the Star Sword in hand, Thea jumps onto her Pegasus and she flies into battle, and the scene sounds a lot like something that Bryce saw at the ballet in House of Sky and Breath, when she sees it's like an armored figure, and they have a helmet on obscuring features, but they're riding a Pegasus, like sword raised, going into battle. So I have to wonder if that is something left over from Parthos. Like, I should have gone back and looked, but
there's a lot of like not precursors, what's the word, like where she's giving foreshadowing when they're at the ballet in the beginning of book 2.
Yeah, there was
so
a
many
lot.
things.
Well, and all the third. I'm still interested if that was for nothing. What?
There's some more information coming.
Okay, we're just not there yet.
Helena and Silene aren't the only ones running. Panicked Fae have figured out what the sisters are doing, and they're rushing to save themselves and the children in their arms. This part made me sick to read.
I know.
Like, they're literally like, can you just take my child? And like, these
she doesn't try at all.
They are like, nah, gotta save myself.
She literally saves herself and then immediately closes it, because I know that the I think it's the Fae, like the Throne of Glass Fae, are also like rushing up.
Mm-hmm.
But you could have grabbed like a kid.
I mean,
Hey,
at
kid,
this,
have
yeah.
someone throw their kid at you. Take it.
At the end, they're like, just take my child, just take the baby, just any of this.
It's
Like,
very Titanic or something where like your
yeah,
people are like shoving their kids, like, please take my kid.
I
And
don't know
they're
how you can live with
very
yourself walking away
selfish.
from that.
Well, and that's why I'm a little more like pro Helena is I mean, she does stay with her people knowing what's going to happen to her, and
Mm-hmm.
it, like, speaks to her character.
I know they're probably short on time. Like the hordes are coming, the armies against them are like there is a very short amount of time, but you could still have wrapped an arm around a child or two. Like there's just
Exactly.
the fact that no efforts were made. It really disappointed me to
Well,
read
and
that.
Thea didn't have she waited until the last minute to make this decision to go. Like, could you have, even hours
You weren't
earlier
so selfish. You could have planned
started
for your
moving some
people.
of the children? Like, hey, this
Yeah.
battle is not going well. Just to be safe, let's start moving some of the kids back.
Oh my God, yeah. The battle hadn't been going well for a while.
Mhm.
So yeah, I feel bad. I mean, I can understand why Bryce is so upset.
Oh,
Hearing
it would
this.
be very
Like,
upsetting
oh,
to like
good, this is my people. I'm
do
so
your
proud.
23andMe and it comes back that it's just all assholes.
Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah, they're not. They like. I don't even think it crosses her mind to stop because I mean, it's her sharing the story. So in theory, she could be giving her inner dialogue of it. I was devastated. It broke my heart. There wasn't time,
She
but
didn't sound like it.
she was just very like monotone. This is what happened.
Yeah, well, she's very much like we had to save ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We had to keep this going forward. And you're like, yeah, okay.
So Silene and Helena open a portal to a stone room, but Helena doesn't actually sound the horn. She instead leans over and plucks the shortest string, and she shoves her sister, still holding the harp, through the archway.
Helena didn't look back as she charged down the mountain to buy her sister time. So, Helena,
We stand.
yes, we're not mad at you anymore. Just
We're not
Silene.
mad. And we know what happens to her, too.
Yeah.
Which is...
It's brutal.
Silene notes power blasting from Peleus like she's never seen. And I have to imagine it's like how Rigulus has granted Lidia power, that power has been given to him by Rigulus, right?
Yes.
Because
Power
he
is given
doesn't...
to Peleus from Rigulus.
Yeah, because he doesn't have that kind of power. And we now know that he can gift power because he's done it to Lidia. So.
Yeah, that's how he's buying his loyalty, I guess. And of course, he crowned him a prince. So he's like, I'm a prince. I'm very important.
Well, and when you go back, we have a friend who is just now reading. She just finished
the first
book.
One.
And the way, like, looking at it through her eyes of not really knowing the real history of what's happened. And we all assumed that Thea was this great female character that we were going to love. And we didn't really know what actually happened with Peleus. And I was way wrong about one of my theories because I was like, it says that she died under Peleus's blade, but it doesn't say that Peleus was wielding it. So I definitely thought, that there was going to be something more. But no, he was just a power-hungry man. What do you know?
And like, I know sometimes the simplest answer is it, but we talked about this last week. I feel like Sarah could probably have done more with some of these stories.
Yeah.
She just chose like the simplest out to give us an answer and then move on to her next plot point.
Yeah, it's a little disappointing.
A little bit. The last Silene sees of Midgard is Peleus picking up the star sword and plunging it through Thea's head.
Not even like her chest or...
That is so brutal. Like, cut my head off. Like, why through my head? Ugh.
Silene lands back in Prythian and she hears the screaming of people through the walls, through the stone, and she's begging. They're begging to be let through. They're still begging for their children to be let through, and it's what Nesta heard in Silver Flames. Now we understand why it sounded like there were people trapped in the stone.
Yeah.
They were on the other side. Silene decides all of this knowledge, everything that happened, that it should die with her.
Yeah, why? That seems a little self-serving.
Why.
I mean, yeah, you look like the bad guy, but I don't think you're going to look better. And I don't think you care.
Well, and she does later on. We'll talk about how, she passes it down through her son. But the reason we are where we are with no one in Prythian knowing about any of this is because of what she chose to do. Like, they're not prepared. They weren't like on the lookout or protecting, what we find out is in the prison, because they don't know about it. No one knows about this real history. No one knew about Thea. It's just, there were so many wrong moves.
I mean, To protect the secret that is hiding beneath their feet. I understand from one perspective, but also she's able to keep everybody from hating Thea and knowing how selfish she was,
Yeah, exactly.
which is crap.
Yeah, it's selfish. She portrays it in a way that it's for the good of everyone, but it seems like it's mostly for the good of her, who now
Yeah.
has to exist in Prythian and really doesn't want people knowing what went down.
I mean, it is important for like a little bit, but it also like two birds with one stone. I can also hide the secret.
Yeah, exactly. And if you thought we were getting a redemption arc, like you're just going to be disappointed throughout the book. Silene sets the harp down on top of the 8-pointed star in the center of the room, and she uses her light to carve a map of the cosmos. Bryce notes that Selene's light is more like the Asteries than like hers. It's capable of being more than just light, like we saw when Bryce was running from Rigulus, and he's using his light to like slam into things. It looks like Selene's light can do that too.
Yeah, I mean, if she can carve into stone, that's a little more powerful than just being bright.
Mm-hmm.
Silene wanders through her former home, which had been left empty because the Fae thought it was cursed. Yeah, because she fucked them all over. So she said, fuck it, and turned it into what we now know as the prison.
Despite her efforts to hide what had once been, a terrible and ancient power hung in the air, just like her mother had always warned that, now that I think about it, Silene couldn't have told people. She didn't know. She just knew evil lingered below them, but I guess she never thought through that.
Or never asked questions.
I know.
Bryce would be dead immediately. She'd be like, I have more questions.
Yeah,
what do you mean?
She would have immediately been like, down here? Under my feet?
We're going to see exactly what Bryce would do and why she can't know till she knows.
I'm fighting for my life for Bryce on social media, and it is getting harder and harder.
It's not your fault she does this to herself. Silene is in her Van Helsing era, hunting monsters left by the Daglin and throwing them into her home-turned prison to atone for the unforgivable shit that she, her mother, and her sister pulled.
Silene eventually wed the future High Lord of the Night Court, who wanted her to rule by his side as High Lady. High Lady, like the other lords.
That's a huge thing, by the way. Like the other lords,
like that was a thing.
By the time Feyre comes around, they're like, there are no high ladies.
Yeah, so that was like definitely a trickle down effect of because she passes because she's seen how power corrupted her mother. But I mean, you just don't be a piece of shit. You can still be High Lady, and I don't know. But yeah, she kind of set women back.
Honestly, it's interesting
with that decision.
That usually in series, power corrupts men, but women can handle it. And I guess not here.
Yeah, I don't like this turn. Nope.
I guess Amarantha was like that too. Silene takes her firstborn, who sometimes glowed with starlight, to the prison and keyed the wards into his blood. When he's old enough, she tells him about the dread trove and the threat of the Asteria and asks him to continue sharing the story with his son, and you get it.
You might be wondering if Rhys knows, and Az says that he doesn't, that it must have been forgotten and they stopped passing it along at some point. I don't know. The timeline and this, it's just very confusing to me.
I mean, that's sus. But also the fact that she's only telling her sons, like she's already setting it up so that only the men will be high lords and there'll be no high ladies. Like she's already like projecting her own problems on them, and that makes me mad. You don't know how I could have done. I could have really done a good job. More could have done a great job. It's her fault.
Yeah, exactly. It's suspicious to me. As time passes, the Dust Court, Thea, missing Fae, it all becomes more of a myth, like something that is talked about, but more like kind of how we talk about King Arthur or something. Like it's like a blending of myth and history.
Well, they don't have it written down either, so that 15,000 years is a long time to hold on to that history.
Yeah. And towards the end of her life, Silene returns to her former home. And so she's left this account, this hologram, which again, we don't know how, but she's left this hologram for an heir who ends up, being Bryce. As the hologram dissolves, Silene expresses her hope that the mother will forgive her.
Well, I fucking don't, says Bryce. Also, Bryce is a female. Is this a problem for you?
Yeah, really.
If you're only telling the males of your line?
It's a lot to process for Bryce, and it's a lot to process for us. I wasn't expecting Thea and her daughters to be villains, and they're victims in a lot of ways, but they're also villains. And so much of what they did was unforgivable.
Yeah, I feel like Thea for sure was a villain, and I don't know, maybe her daughters were like kind of just spoiled and cosseted, and so when it finally came down to it, I think Helena seems like she was like stepping up. And I don't know. I mean, obviously, I was brutal about Silene earlier. Not taking a child with you, not trying to help them is brutal.
Mm-hmm.
The only redeeming thought is that maybe in the back of her mind, she was somehow trying to think of how she could save the, like, not accidentally leave
Like,
the gate open
yeah.
and like possibly allow these creatures to get through to the other world. Like, I don't know. It's not great.
I mean, it was definitely a terrible decision either way. She was either like fucking over the Fae on Midgard or fucking over the Fae and Prythian by leaving the door open for too long.
But even the way that she decided to handle her house moving forward with only telling her sons and then their eldest son, you know, what if you only had daughters? Like, it feels weird that she made that very specific choice. And it's not necessarily a villain move, but it's not one that I applaud either.
Yeah,
So,
I'm
not great.
Not a fan.
No. Bryce has a lot to unpack emotionally, but she's also trying to decide if this information is actually helpful in her mission to save Midgard.
It's a lot to process. She hears this entire history. She's so disappointed by Thea and her, you know, where she comes from. But then she's also like, I still have a world to save. What did I just learn that helps me?
Yeah, well, you're also not telling me how I'm supposed to join the Star Sword and Truth Teller.
Mhm.
You're not telling me ways that I can actually
How
use
the
the Dread
Asteri
Trove
die.
together.
Mhm.
How did you do it before when you overcame them? Like, you didn't tell me anything. You just told me about your bad decisions.
Yeah.
Yay, thanks.
Erd led me here. Fate led me here. And I still don't know why.
Ugh, so annoying. Well, then we're back in the Asteri's dungeons after Baxi and I can't even read that. I'm like, whoa.
Chewed through Rune's wrist.
Like, they're so fucking stupid.
They're
what
so
was your
stupid.
plan
It's
here?
such an ick. We've talked about the dungeon daddies just being a major ick, and
their choices are so bad. All of you are old enough to know better. What the fuck were you gonna do? But anyway, so Baxian chews off this nasty wrist and vomits just in time for Rigelus, Pollux, and the Hawk to walk in and laugh at you.
It's so embarrassing. Like, can you imagine you've done this?
They're like, nice job.
Rune was swinging, trying to
naked,
with his feet grab something.
And now he's crying and cradling Stump. Like, okay, I can do
and
it.
His wrist is just hanging off.
Like, what? How did? What
and
was
it's
the
not
point?
funny, but the Hawk grabs Rune's hand and does like a middle finger with it. And I mean,
it's kind of funny. It's very macabre, but it's also like, you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also easier to laugh when you remember that Rune chose having his hand chewed off instead of just having a conversation with Lidia.
Right. He could have been communicating with her this entire time.
Like, that's more than a little bitch move. Like, what is wrong with you?
If Thea can be loved by Adis, then Lidia can be loved by Rune. Thea's way worse.
Rune hasn't even tried. Rune's in his, like, pouting phase.
He is. He's very pouty.
There are also a lot of parallels between Thea and Lidia. Mm-hmm. Both are basically pets and working against their masters behind their backs.
I think so too. But it shows how great of a character Lidia is, that she is living a double life like Thea was. She's having to keep the love of her life, Rune, a secret, just like Thea did with Finn, but she somehow has retained her ability to be a good person. I mean, she's not High Queen, so like she doesn't have the corruptible power, I guess. But I would say she is still deep down good. And I feel like Thea lost herself.
I think Lidia is probably going to be one of my favorite characters moving forward. Like, once I'm starting to see these sides of her. And throughout the book, I love Lidia as we go on. But I'm trying to say that Lidia and Thea, these are more like evolved characters. Like, they're way more morally gray. They've done some bad things, but that doesn't mean that they're not savable.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
You know, Margot would be a great Lidia. I know that, again, like the age, what they're supposed to look like doesn't always match, but she would be a great Lidia.
Well, I mean, nobody's going to, it's okay. I think it would still work out. I mean, yeah, now I'm visualizing her as Lidia.
And then who would be Rune?
I don't know. Cause like, again, that goes back to like, we need some beautiful actors. And lately the characters they've chosen for things, I'm like, are we serious right now?
It'd have to be Henry Cavill with half of his head shaved, but then it would have to be Henry Cavill also as Hunt with his halo, and then it would just be him in all the roles.
But honestly,
just with different wigs.
I think Henry Cavill would have to debulk some because he's also so muscular.
Not if you were Hunt,
right? But Rune's meant to be kind of like more like lean and muscular.
I can't think of anyone for Rune because I have a hard time picturing like I try to picture someone who looks like that character. No, like not obviously they can cut their hair or wear whatever, but there's no one who really like just
I mean,
already
well,
looks
now I'm
like
trying to
how we
think of
picture
like
Rune.
dark hair and blue eyes. Like Zac Efron is pretty.
No, Zac
He just
Efron
needs his
cannot be
jaw
Rune.
debulked.
I don't think he's that pretty.
Oh, I think he
I
is.
mean, he has a very good body, but he's had some plastic surgery.
You know, who is it? Ian Somerhalder.
He's too old.
He definitely needs Botox, and he's, I guess, not into it. But he could be. He was very sexy.
Yeah.
I could see him being one of these characters.
You know, he could be like I'm trying to think of like King of Highburn or something. Like I could see him being like the bad guy. I know that King of Highburn isn't
No,
gorgeous.
he's too sexy for that.
Okay, well there's got to be someone
snarky.
Yeah. I don't know.
Guys, send us your theories. We need help with this
Yeah,
one.
send us your dream casting because I'm having a hard time, especially with Rune. I'm having a hard time.
Well, all the Fae art is beautiful. And I'm like, who looks like that? That's what I want to watch.
It's just Henry Cavill.
Male models who can't act.
It will have to be like the guy Brock something that's like an Instagram model would be such a good Cassian, but I don't know if he can act. He was in a couple episodes of now I can't remember, it was an HBO show, but he like played himself. He was just kind of a meathead. I don't know if he would
You'll have to show me who that is.
Yeah, I don't know if he would be a good enough Cassian, but yeah,
I'm interested.
It's gonna have to be model good looks, but a good actor, and
yeah, it's hard to come by. So anyway, I mean, as we were talking about Thea and Lidia, deep down, Lidia is still good, and Thea was corrupted somewhere along the way. And then maybe she was always like that with Fionn, not wanting to give the crown to her.
Yeah, like maybe whatever is inside of you is like amplified.
Well, Adis still fell for her, so somewhere.
But Adis is also a prince of hell. Like, does he have the best moral compass? I don't know.
Well, I think somewhere. I mean, because eventually Thea stopped and felt remorse. Too late.
Maybe she needed to find her mate. Like maybe that helped her find her
Heal
way.
her wounds inside.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, it's really sad that they didn't get to. I wonder where Thea's soul went.
I don't know. Those are more big questions. Like, I don't know. I don't think that's discussed.
But we know from other books how devastating it is for someone to lose their mate. So now makes me even more sad for Adis.
Yeah.
But Rigulus comments that it brings him no joy to see the halo back on Hunt, to which Hunt replies, halo or black crown. And Rigulus is like that white man blinking me. Just for a second, he's like, what?
So he recognizes the term and puts it together that Hunt's been talking to the shadows, aka the princes of hell.
I was thinking about the shadows, and it reminded me of Moore when she has her little side quest and she has like that secret estate or house or whatever. She sees it's like a patch of darkness, and it's familiar yet foreign, and she says that it's not like Az's shadows, that it's something different and that it's staring back at her. And I wonder if it could be a prince of hell. Like I wonder if
maybe forgot about that.
I mean, I had assumed in the moment that it was either Bryaxis or what's the Koshi? That can't be right. Koshi. Or
it feels like Yoshi.
In the moment, that's who I thought it was, but now I'm like, could it have been a prince of hell?
I mean, it could have been. It was never spelled out for us.
Like I would watch more in a prince of hell. I mean, like I feel like it should be more of a princess of hell. I don't know, but yeah, I'd watch that tape. We finally get to what Rigulus really wants because, like we've said from the beginning, there's nothing that Hunt, Baxian, and Rune actually have to offer. Like when it comes to information, like intel, they don't have anything that Rigulus doesn't already know. So we've been wondering why he's even keeping them alive or torturing them. And it's because that he wants Hunt's lightning for like a little side project he's working on. And we know because of what Pollux told Lidia that it has to do with the harpy and bringing her back. And it's easier if it's given willingly. So this entire time he's basically been breaking Hunt down.
That's a very
get to this point.
Interesting. Like, since when has that been something?
It's Frankenstein. It's very like mad scientist.
It's not just the electrical current though. Like, there's something else to it that we haven't been told before.
Right.
Hint,
there's a lot
foreshadowing.
There's a lot about Hunt's power and lightning that we don't understand.
Rigulus does. Rigulus pulls out a quartz crystal, which is a natural conduit.
We'll remember that when we're back in Prythian.
He offers. Oh, he requests an offer of a sliver of lightning, or he can choose that either Rune or Baxian die.
I mean, I hate to say it, but it's Baxian, right? I'd be like,
send him back to Danica. Hunt fights at first, but eventually gives in, letting Rigelus insert the crystal into his arm. That's wild.
Yeah.
And feels what others like Sandriel experienced when they were burned by his lightning.
Rigelus puts what's basically a First Light battery into his pocket and decides that instead of honoring his deal, he's going to punish Hunt because he needs to learn the consequences of defiance, even if it was short-lived. So he's still going to kill Rune or Baxian.
I mean, like, even more reason to have both your hands available, Rune.
But we've talked about, I don't like Rigelus. Obviously, he's the villain. I like that he has a little more personality than some of the other, especially the ACOTAR villains. Like,
yeah, the way he's toying with them.
Yeah.
He's not a slave to his emotions.
Mm-hmm.
He's playing with them. Lydia walks into the aftermath of Rigelus' visit and sees the three of them hanging unconscious and jump scare, Rune stump.
How embarrassing.
I'd be like, what happened to you? I did it to myself.
She pulls out, I did it to myself. She pulls out 2 syringes of First Light under the guise of repairing Hunt and Baxian's wings as some sort of like physical and mental torture. And she really has them fooled for them to not be like, what?
I mean, and they trust her to do these things.
And she didn't know about Rune's hand, because he refuses to communicate with her. So she never knows what's going on in the dungeon. Like, she could have been like, hey, hold off on chewing off your wrist. I have a plan.
Help is coming.
But he refused to talk to her.
Ugh.
And so she doesn't have any of the First Light for Rune, but she really couldn't have pulled that off.
Yeah, well, she can't go back now.
Mm-hmm.
And it would have been too sus to heal it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
She instructs Pollux and the Hawk to let them fully regrow so the angels can savor the hope before removing them again. And because they're idiots, they believe her.
They're just like, oh yeah, good idea.
That also means that she's done something like this before, which is why they're like, oh yeah, okay.
Also, how itchy is it going to be when they regrow?
Ugh, I'm already like hung up. Like, that just sounds annoying.
It's actually pretty amazing how fully she has everyone convinced. Like, all these different things when she goes down to get the Sprite Queen and she's like, it's for torture. And they're like, okay. And like all these things that she does, no one even suspects.
I mean, she does take the Sprite Queen for some torture that the queen then refuses. But I do also love when she pulls rank.
I love that. She tells the gruesome twosome, like, get lost. I'm going to have some fun. And they're like, can we watch? And she's like, no. And so they leave. And there's that line that I talked about in the last episode when we were talking about our toxic attraction to Pollux.
I know how you keep saying we.
We. He says, I'll fuck that disrespect out of you, Lydia, bloody cunt or not.
Which, the first line, okay, I don't hate it. But also, it's so weird. I think we discussed this before, too. Why he's worried about periods. You love blood.
Yeah.
Why do you care?
I think it's anything feminine or female. He's just like, ugh.
I could understand him not wanting to go near the tampons.
Yeah.
Like, that's not for me. But still, that fuck the disrespect out of you, Sarah. Where has this been?
I know that there's some fanfic out there. We have to stay strong and remember the context. We are not into this. We are not attracted to it.
Say no.
Say no. And I posted a video on Instagram where we were talking about that. And I had some people definitely side-eyeing, but others were like, I feel you. So thank you to everyone who didn't judge us.
This is for fantasy. Stop judging me. I'm not doing this every day.
This is like a safe place for us to
safe
explore.
Place to discuss it with you.
Exactly.
Silly.
Yeah, that's why we read fantasy.
Right.
If this were happening in real life, that would not be okay.
I don't think you'd be okay. Yeah.
But no one's actually being kept hostage by an angel that we know of.
That we know of.
Lydia tries to communicate the situation that she's planning an escape and that the harpy is being resurrected, which we know is terrible because the harpy knows exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And Lydia's involvement. She tries to tell Rune all that, but he just closes his eyes.
Like a bitch.
He probably has blood loss, but
no, he's like, I don't
being a little bitch.
He like intentionally is like on his little pain raft, like, no, don't talk to me. I can't with him. Meanwhile, Bryce is shocked and disgusted by what she learned, and it just confirms what she already felt about the Fae.
Nesta and Az play devil's advocate, but Bryce is not hearing it. And that's very Bryce.
Yeah.
She's kind of
also kind of like Rune.
Exactly.
stubbornly like, nope.
All of the shit she just learned, she just sat through a history lesson, all in the hopes that she was going to learn how to go back and save her world, how to kill an Asteri. And there wasn't an obvious answer. Like I don't know if she expected instruction, because it's not like Silene would have known what, the predicament that she would be in, but she has to know. Well, I don't know if Silene actually knew how to kill the Asteri,
why would I care, Silene, about your struggles? Okay, you started with telling me about your mom using the dread trove to defeat the Asteri, and I wouldn't be down here trying to like figure this out unless the Asteri were a problem again.
Yeah.
So it is weird they're not giving a more overt answer.
Yeah, I didn't ask about all this other shit. I don't care.
Yeah,
just tell me how to kill him.
Now I'm just depressed, thanks. Nesta offers Bryce a hand on her shoulder, and Az wants to go tell Rhys everything they've just learned immediately. Oh, also, what happened to the horn?
Az is such a sweet idiot sometimes, because he's like, what happened to the horn? And Nesta's like, she is the horn.
Yikes, Nesta, stop.
But, I mean, Nesta, they do start sizing her up, but it's not an immediate attack. I feel like if it had been Rhys down there, he would have immediately killed Bryce. So many times he would have killed Bryce.
I don't know. Yeah, it's not an immediate attack, but they're definitely sizing her up to prepare for the best way. Because, like, if they attack her, she's already shown that if you like shoot power at her, she can absorb it and use it.
Right.
So you can't just like overtly attack her anyway.
And she's a huge threat to Prythian.
Yeah.
And they're both doing their best for their respective worlds. It's like Bryce.
She is a link to the Asteri that she has told them wants to come back and harm them. So yeah, I get that I want them to all be friends, but I get that they're very concerned.
Yeah.
And they're rightfully nervous for Bryce to open a door back to Midgard. Oh, that's what I just said. Because the monsters have been trying for 15,000 years to get back to Prythian.
Az makes a break for it. I think he's going to go get Rhys or reinforcements, against whom Bryce would not have a shot. So like, she's like, he can't get out of here. So she starts throwing her light, but it's not enough because, it's just light. At her feet, the 8-pointed star is glimmering, and Bryce recalls Selene's words, "To you, in this very stone, I leave the inheritance and the burden that my own mother passed to me."
Remembering how Thea removed her star, her magic, and split it between she and her daughters, Bryce drops to her knees and slams her hands atop the star.
This is where we need a big budget to do, this would be such a cool scene in a movie or a TV show if it were done right. Like, yeah. I can picture this so clearly.
It's like as she's like drawing the magic back up into
her. And
her
hair is like, starts flowing
around.
And
yeah. Bryce guides that raw magic, that raw power, unburdened by the drop, up into her body, and then white light erupts.
Bryce controls the stone like Silene had, and she stops Az from his escape and Nesta's advance by shifting the wall. So poor Az is just like full tilt flying out, and he just runs straight into a stone wall.
Where it's like, what? Like bouncing, like, wait. I mean, but she's literally shifting the walls of this prison. Do we need to worry about monsters escaping?
Yeah, it's a prison and you're shifting the walls.
We need them to stay.
A prison full of like the worst monsters in Prythian, the ones that were left by the Daglin and then hunted and put there by Silene. So it's not the best strategy.
Careful.
And that's Nesta and Az the whole time are like, stop.
Please stop. Yeah.
And Bryce feels the mountain, the island, and what she could restore her birthright to. So I don't know if it's trying to like tempt her into it, because if she were to restore it, it would no longer be a prison. Like all that shit would get out.
It kind of sounds like the island is talking to her, and not like she's not in control, but it almost seems like it's taking over, trying to restore. Like it's like, okay, now I have a chance. Because there's a moment where she, I think, thinks about the fact that all those prisoners are there, and she's kind of like, I don't care. That's not great. That's not a great way to do that.
Not great.
Nesta and Az square off against Bryce, who keeps shifting shit around until the ground beneath their feet collapses and they fall into a void.
It was really hard to decide whose side to be on with this fight, because I want Bryce to make it back to Midgard. I want her to save her mate. I want her to save her brother, figure out the parasites in the water. I want all of that to happen, but not at the risk of Prythian. And Nesta and Az are doing what they need to do for, Nesta for her mate and for their family, their little family that they've built. And they're all no one's wrong, you know, like they're all doing their best for their respective worlds.
It's
but
weird because Bryce is being so unpredictable, and honestly, it's not like she's in full control of herself.
Mhm.
So it's like I'm mad at her, but I also feel like something else is guiding and pushing her. So
Yeah.
it's weird because like I want to be mad at her, and also I understand that threat. I
Mhm.
mean, she's a big threat. She's not even opening in a portal, but she's fucking around with this massive prison holding literal terrifying monsters that have been there. Some of them like 10,000, 15,000 years.
Yeah, remember that blue skin fuck that Cassian is so scared of? Can you imagine having to tell him like, hey, he actually got out?
He's coming for you.
He would be so scared. After witnessing the lengths that Rune will go to escape and avoid talking to her, Lidia asks Deck to make sure the cameras are turning away from her as she goes to where the mystics are kept.
The mystics and Orithis. Lidia tells the Sprite Queen Hunt Athalar is in the dungeons, and she obviously knows of the angel who led the rebellion that the Sprites joined.
I sometimes forget, or not really forget, but I think it's nice, like the little reminders of like, Hunt is a badass on his own. He's not just Bryce's mate. Before Bryce was born, he was leading a rebellion against the Asteri. Like, he has lived a very long life, and he has the trauma, you know, to prove it. But it's like when the dragon knows his name, like Hunt is known. Hunt was a major player.
He was a general.
Mm-hmm.
It's just we met him at a time when he had been damaged and abused.
Mm-hmm. And he was like shame spiraling in the shower.
I mean, he'd been abused for so long. By the time we meet him, he's got to get back to who he was.
I know, and that's what it sucks about the crown being back on him, as he was.
Well, him being back in the dungeons without, I mean, his wings are regrowing now, but being down there with his friends and knowing his mate is lost out somewhere. Like,
well, he talks about how much harder it is. I mean, the first time Shahar had just died, but now he like has these friends hanging beside him, and he knows that Bryce is out there, how it's harder this time.
I was gonna say, it's like it's easier because there's people there to comfort you, but also you cannot, I guess, disassociate the same because Shahar had just died, so nobody was depending on him anymore.
Right.
This time around, multiple people are like, some of them right next to you. Like, you know, you have to kind of deal with it and stick with it, which
there's so much mental and emotional abuse in addition to the physical. Like, it's almost worse.
It's very draining.
He's gonna have so much PTSD and so much trauma, and Bryce has not been the best with his trauma.
It's not gonna necessarily get better. Hunt needs a vacation, I'll just tell you that.
He really does. He deserves it.
And also, I mean, while she didn't actively participate, the queen of the Sprites is still fallen. So all of the Sprites are now considered lessers because of things that happened with Hunt.
Yeah, she was born into...
Yeah, she wasn't even the same queen that fought by Hunt's side.
Right.
Sorry.
It doesn't even... like, that's what's so sad about the Sprites is they weren't even, you know, the ones now weren't even alive when it happened, but they're like born into being slaves just because...
automatically.
With no other choice given the timeline that keeps getting moved up because now the Harpy's coming back. Yikes.
With everything.
Lidia tells the queen that Hunt is back on his shit and the Hind needs her to help free Hunt and two others. She's like, you need to help me get Hunt Athalar and these other two guys.
Yeah, also these. Lidia also tells the queen about Lahaba, a descendant of Queen Ranthia Drawl who sacrificed herself to save Bryce. Lydia is there to ask for Orithis' help in creating a diversion and some light torture to make shit look believable.
Lidia really is up for anything she has to do.
Lydia is not afraid.
She's not afraid.
She's like, if I gotta do it, we'll do it.
She is such a good character. I would say that she is more Aelin than Bryce is Aelin.
Yeah.
Like Lydia
is a strong character.
She's carrying this book. So far, she's carrying this book.
Let me just tell you, non-spoiler alert, but there's some even bigger things ahead that you're like, oh, that's, you know, builds up Lydia. I'm just telling you that now. She's
up there as far as like all the SJM books for
How
my
far
favorite
have you
character.
read in the book now? Are you just at chapter 25?
No, I'm at like 35. I'm trying not to get too far ahead. And then obviously this past week I didn't have any time to read, which was another terrible part of having to do a work convention is I just wanted to be home reading and I had no one. They were talking about non-book things and I was like, I can't stress how much I don't care.
It's that look on my face.
Yeah. I just disassociate and start thinking about reverse harems while they're talking.
I honestly, yes.
So yeah, I'm only at like 35, but
okay. Yeah, like I already like Lidia so much more, and she's proving to be a strong character.
Mhm.
And then now I don't remember which chapters it's in. If you're not already there, I would say within the next 5 chapters, there's even more that you're gonna be like, damn.
Okay. I'm looking forward to it.
I think it's good. It's a lot. It's more depth.
And like when the frat boys first, when Lidia shows up at the meat market and they don't believe her, the Sprite Queen is skeptical because she's had all these people fooled for so long. Like it was never even a thought that she could be with the rebellion.
Yeah, she's probably seen some of the torture she does. So you're like, okay.
But like in the meat market, Lidia just doesn't have time to convince. She's like, this is the truth. You're going to have to trust me just like I'm going to have to trust you. Like I don't have, what evidence can I even show you?
Yeah.
She just doesn't have time to sit around and convince everyone. Lidia originally planned to have the queen melt off the Gorsian shackles, but she's yes-anding her way through this. Like she's having to adapt, and that goes against everything that she's done up until this point. She's a character she's very careful, she's meticulous, she's been leading this double life, and now she's having to frantically like throw things together and out herself to all these people who could really turn against her.
Yeah.
And she's having to trust these people that she really doesn't know. And she's putting herself at risk.
I mean, it's a lot of, yeah. Even Ophion is almost gone. So she's trying to reach out to them with whoever's left. Hey, I don't know you. You've never spoken to me.
Right.
Please come through with this. Rune's friends don't quite trust her either. And you're like, please come through with this.
And like Deck is good at computers, but if I need backup, like she's having to use what she has.
Yeah.
It's not the best.
I mean, that's a lot of faith she's putting out there, pulling on strings that she's been working on for years. I mean, she's literally putting everything on the line, and there's no coming back from this if it doesn't work.
Yeah,
she's been made once this comes out.
Exactly. Like there's no other option but for this to work.
Lidia made a deal with Hildy, the Imperial hag she set up using the comm crystal. Remove the Sprite Queen's tattoo and you'll walk free.
As soon as Lidia unlocks the hag's shackles, the bitch tries to attack her. But Lidia swears on Luna's bow and I guess that's like the closest thing to a blood oath because the hag is like, oh, fine. She promises or swears that she won't kill the hag after the tattoo's removed. And I'm getting major Iron Teeth vibes.
It's very yellow legs.
The way
very babbly yellow legs.
Exactly. She's sneering about Hypaxia being like kind-hearted, and she has yellow eyes, and I know that they were gold, but yellow eyes and silver hair. I don't know. I'm getting Iron Teeth vibes.
Yeah, but especially like once she mentions a goddess, even if it's Luna instead of the three-faced goddess, the fact that immediately has the hag's attention. And we know how religious the witches were in Throne of Glass, so I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
We just, we need to see her ankles.
Yeah, pull up your skirt. Let me see those ankles. I still have so many questions about the witches. Like if they crossed over with the Shifter Fae from, what was it? Aurelia. And that's Throne of Glass. Or are the witches being in Midgard proof that Valg are in Midgard, since witches come from the mating of Fae and Valg?
Or Fae and those from hell.
Well, exactly. I don't know.
Is that the same?
Something I started thinking about that's really like does not affect this book at all. But if the iron inside the Iron Teeth witches ever hindered their magic, like could they be so much more powerful?
Oh yeah,
because they didn't have the iron.
They don't really have magic.
No.
They just have like their life force.
Right, exactly.
Could they have magic if they didn't have the iron?
I know. It's something I really never considered when I was reading Throne of Glass, but it just, when I was working on this and thinking about the witches, just kind of like popped in my head.
That is an interesting, curious question. I believe iron being in blood was allegedly the gods, quote, doing to keep power in check. So Iron Teeth and nails could be an extension of that.
Right. Like could the Iron Teeth witches be really, really powerful, and that kind of kept them in
like
check.
Just doing more, to keep them in check. In check.
And they can be affected by magic, so it's not like the iron kind of protects them from outward magic.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a total sidebar, but I just thought it was interesting.
I'm so
interested in witches and the lore.
I know. I
in all of these books. Like that's kind of my favorite. And I was hoping that we would get a little bit more.
I support it. I want more.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely was hoping we get some more witch lore and connections in this book.
Mm-hmm.
With the tattoo removed, the Sprite Queen begins blazing a blinding white, and as her first act of freedom, Hildy bursts into flames.
So technically, Lidia kept her promise.
Wasn't my
She did
fault.
not kill the hag.
Those bargains are real tricky.
I know. You have to be very specific with your wording.
Sorry.
Lydia, a method actor, asked the Sprite Queen to burn her to make the escape look believable, but the chapter ends before we find out what exactly this huge distraction is going to be.
All we know is it's going to be big, and it all relies on the Sprite Queen.
Who Lydia barely knows. She just, she asked the 3 sprites at the meat market who also don't know the queen, but they're like honorable. She's very honorable.
She showed you honor one time. Does that mean you can trust her with everything?
Yeah, it's a huge risk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Back in the tunnels.
How many days do you think that they've been in the tunnels? Like, I'm sure we find out eventually, but it feels like it's been a long time. But it
feels like it's been a few
days.
Yeah, because I guess it. Once she's in the, I'm trying to think how long she's in the dungeons. She's
it's because
dungeons,
we're jumping back and forth so much that it's hard to keep the timeline straight. But also, like, where are they going to the bathroom? Like, I would simply
just hold it forever.
I would die instead of letting Az watch me take a shit. I would simply pass away.
I mean, they're also not really drinking much water, so you would die anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
Kate's basically a camel.
I have an
she drinks water 24/7.
I would be like, when can I have my little coffee treat?
Side note, traveling with Kate is impossible.
I know.
A million bathroom breaks.
I have to have a lot of bathroom breaks, but then I also had to start each day with a little treat. But then my boyfriend one time was like, is it a treat if you have it every day?
Yes, because it makes me happy. So yeah, thank you for asking.
But I don't know why, but I always, in books and things, I'm always like, where are they going to the bathroom?
It's wild. Also, she had no trouble telling us about the guys in the dungeon. I'm like, I don't need to know that they're laying in their filth.
They are, but like
so
logistically,
nasty.
Are they literally just, this is not funny. Are they literally just hanging there shitting themselves in front of each other?
But also at one point, Rune's intestines are pulled out. Yeah, I'm assuming they're naked. Because like, how best to attack their body if it's not exposed? So
Lydia is walking in and
she's like, woo, nice. I gotta go.
Ick.
Yeah, the whole thing was like ick. So like that one we get way too much detail. And then here they're just, I guess holding it forever in the tunnels. Enough said.
I'd be like, Az, you and your shadows need to get the fuck out of here for a minute.
Everybody needs to get the fuck out of here for a minute. Never mind. Okay, I got a weird visual.
Now we're thinking about it.
I don't want to know anymore. We're in the aftermath of Bryce siphoning Selene's magic from the prison.
And it's not just a charm. I'm sorry, I'm still thinking about the
I'm honestly envisioning them like hanging over that like crevice where the bridge is. And they're like, just like I have to poop. This is not in the way.
Okay. It's not just a charge that Bryce will use and lose, like when Hunt powers her up, which is going to be kind of sad for Hunt because he was like, she needs me. Now it's like, she doesn't need you anymore.
Oh, baby.
Selene's power is her power now. So she has the magic of both sisters.
Ooh.
But I wonder if she has, like the sisters had shadow and light. Mm-hmm. Does that mean Bryce will have shadows at some point?
Well, this is also like a kernel of power. It's not all of it. So. Mm-hmm.
But also, why doesn't Reese have any light?
I was about to tell you more, but I realized that would be spoilers. So.
Okay, don't say it.
It's just a start. We don't know what's coming yet. I'll just say that.
Bryce doesn't even have time to explore or think about the new power. She, Nesta, and Az have fallen into a chamber with a quartz sarcophagus holding exactly what Thea warned her daughters lay under her feet. Evil. But why was she so cryptic about it? She should have been like, there's a Daglin underneath.
I guess because they didn't want anybody to go exploring for it. Or to try to save it because word would get out.
But also when they fall and she sees the sarcophagus glass coffin being one of the songs in the bonus chapter, you're like, okay. Which makes me think that Stone Mother that we talked about maybe being like related to Az and Aenelius and Ramiel, that really could have been a hint.
Yeah, she does a lot of, I keep saying foreshadowing. Is there another descriptive word?
I mean, it's the glass coffin was definitely for.
There's a lot of things that are kind of like on the nose or like big hints for things that could be coming.
Right. It's hard to tell, though, what's hints and what's Easter eggs of just fun little like, oh, this is fun. But then things that are like, oh, this is significant.
I mean, and this whole scene right now connects to a few things.
Mhm.
Amryn referenced lining the sarcophagi of the great rulers with lead because they thought they'd one day awaken.
I mean, I guess this isn't lead, but I guess this is what she was talking about, right?
I mean, it's made of quartz, like what Rigelus used to capture Hunt's lightning, plus the quartz gate. So
Mhm.
honestly, that sounds like the opposite. That seems like that would help power her up.
Right.
Versus
Well, I
like,
think that
trap
it
her.
was siphoning her magic into the prison, right?
Oh, maybe.
I think that she was also being drained and her magic was being given to the island.
So it's a reverse effect because it's taking
I
it without her
guess.
giving it. If that's
And
the
it's also
case.
funny when she talks about how she got trapped, that I guess Thea was like, "Hey, like, you look tired. Do you want to have a rest in this quartz sarcophagus?" And she was like, "I would love that."
Thank you so much. I'll take my tea, please.
It's just, what an idiot. But also, what an idiot Thea not just killing her. I mean, she
Maybe
could have.
she couldn't.
No, it was to be petty. She wanted her down there, like, watching Thea live her life while she was trapped.
Another reason to love Thea.
Exactly. It does not get better. It's another throwback also to Throne of Glass because Elena trapped, is it Erewhon?
Yeah, but that's because she used the power that they needed for herself because she's stupid.
Yeah. But she used the lock that was like was it Mala? Her magic. And it was holding onto her magic and being used as a lock, kind of like the prison held Selene's magic.
It's also a little bit like Sleeping Beauty.
Except this bitch is not asleep anymore. She's awake.
Nice job, Bryce.
It's terrifying though to think about looking into a coffin and someone just their eyes pop open.
Yeah, please don't.
I have to imagine this is light setup for the next ACOTAR book. Like, who knows how many of these bitches are just hidden across Prythian? Do we know for sure this is the last Daglin in Prythian?
It's still there because we don't know the total number of how many there were.
And what are the implications of Bryce fucking with the prison, plus what she's about to do? We don't know what the butterfly effect of what she's doing is going to be in Prythian.
Yeah. Bryce describes the females as, what else? Gorgeous with pale... Why did I make that plural? Just one female, only one in the coffin. Bryce describes the female as gorgeous with pale skin, dark hair, glowing blue eyes, and what Danica would have called blowjob red lipstick, but it also sounds like Maeve.
Exactly. Nesta is leaning against Az, who is holding the Star Sword and Truth Teller. Bryce wonders if Az maybe has a little Starborn in him because he can wield Gwydion, or if he can just wield it because he has possession of Truth Teller.
Yeah.
And I don't have the answer to that. I don't know. But I think that the next ACOTAR book, if I had to guess, we would be finding a lot more.
It's definitely Az's book. We just don't know Az and who.
Well, hopefully we get Az POV, or it could also be Lucian's book. I don't know.
Ugh.
Yeah, I love Lucian. Live, laugh, Lucian.
Lucian is so useless. Okay.
Oh my god.
Sorry, just attack you out of
How
nowhere
dare
with
you?
that one.
You know he's my favorite. I still think the knife is his connection to an alias. There's a lot of speculation online about Az being next in line to the Dust Court. But if I were going to guess, just based on being symbolic, who would bring the Dust Court back to life, it would be Aelin. If I had to guess, just like bringing something back to life seems more her vibe. And Aelin wielded Truth Teller too. And there's a point where she hears a beating heart locked away. But it's when she's like staring out the window, being really fucking cryptic.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's like, "You good?" And she talks about hearing a beating heart. And I have to wonder if she could hear this female in the prison. Was she hearing that? Or maybe even the power in the stone, like the beating heart of the Dust Court. Like, is that what she was hearing?
I mean, to be like, for Silene to set up this prison, she had to basically suck all of the life and power out of the land around it, and push it into the stone to contain the evil below, but also to contain the creatures in the prison. So yeah, maybe it's just the beating heart of the magic in the prison altogether.
Or maybe she was just
definitely trapped there,
being useless. I don't know. I'm going to try not to be too hard because I did see a post. I'm trying to think of the content creator that was talking about when she read the book, she identified closely with Aelin, and then she saw all the hate that Elaine got online, and it was upsetting. And I was like, I need to be more careful because everyone relates to characters in different ways. Like I connected so much with Nesta, and you fucking hated Nesta. And I don't know, like Elaine is not worthless. She's not useless. We just haven't seen enough from her yet. We're annoyed by her.
I think, honestly, I didn't think much about her at all because Nesta was so hateful. And
Yeah.
it was much easier to like hate Nesta and not really think about Elaine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
And a lot of what Elaine is, it's been projected on her. Like she's being protected by Feyre and by Nesta, but I don't know if that's because she's asked for it or they just...
I also couldn't decide if Elaine was kind of like Luna Lovegood in Harry Potter, where she's kind of like unintentionally like aloof and not...
Mm-hmm.
She's just not processing things the same way. So I never was... she annoys me because I just don't care enough, but I don't hate her the way I hated Nesta before.
I know.
You know, like when it comes to like blaming somebody for the situation they were in, I was never like really frustrated with Elaine, although she could have done more. They just, everything they do to describe her makes her sound soft and what's the word? Like incapable.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's because she's been treated like a baby this whole time.
She could have been. She's the middle child.
It would have been great if she had planted like fruits and vegetables instead of flowers when they were starving to death, but
strawberries would be really easy.
Flowers are great
a couple
too.
Basic things.
I think that we will learn more about Elaine like we did with Nesta, and we'll fall in love with the character and her reverse harem. I'm looking forward to reading about. You don't like Lucian and Az in her reverse harem?
I don't like Lucian. I'm also kind of mad at him.
Okay, what?
Look, Lucian went along with all the bullshit from Tamlin, and he was witness to how wrong it was, how much it wasn't working.
It was his BFF. It would be like if you started abusing your boyfriend.
No, he supported Tamlin in asking no questions. Like Tamlin decided to run the court exactly how his dad did, and Lucian was like, "Yeah, that's cool. You're not asking questions either." It feels like, and because he relies on you so much, it feels like you're just as at fault for how things have happened in the Spring Court.
His little band of rebels or whatever, it's kind of an ick too. He's like, whatever, I'm hanging out with my other friends.
You're doing so much by yourself. I don't like hate him, but I'm just also like, ugh, I don't care.
Well, I think I mean, do we know? We don't know that much about Az. We're all just projecting on him.
Fine.
Fine.
Whatever. We'll see.
We'll read about the smut.
The timeline from Thea, Helena, and Silene to now is really confusing.
Exactly, because how do we know that the High Lord that Silene, the future High Lord that Silene marries, how do we know that that was Rhys's ancestor? I know that Mor and Rhys are related, but if we're looking at like a family tree and it's Thea and then, Silene and this High Lord, how do we know, and it comes out two ways, to Rhys's family and Mor's family, how do we know that the information wasn't passed down this way? Like, does Mor know? Surely she would have said something.
Well, Mor's a girl. Remember how they didn't share anything with the women? So Mor probably doesn't know, but did her dad?
Well, it just makes me wonder.
Do we know more about what happened when Rhys's family took over the Night Court from Mor's family? Because I think that would be important to dig into too.
I know the history of like the hewn city and
why they're still neglected because Rhys is mad at them.
Right.
Like I know there's some bad people there, but their kids are probably trapped, and that's not fair.
Yeah, it's not like Mor is not the only, especially Mor knowing how she grew up there. There's probably other Mors. Like, why wouldn't you anticipate anyone else there being worth saving?
Well, Valaris is no longer a secret, so you guys can do better now.
Right. Like these people, you're allowing this society to continue turning like these children into piece of shit adults generation after generation because you're not doing anything. You're allowing them to govern themselves.
I would be very interested in the newest ACOTAR book to see what they're doing to improve the court overall, not just Valaris.
Yeah.
So I hope that they're doing something.
Yeah, that's his
Rhys
court too.
Will have become a total ick,
Mm-hmm.
which is disappointing if that's how the character goes. But
it is.
Anyway.
And also Rhys and Rune looking identical is a little confusing because if the family tree is what we think it is, then they're just distant cousins.
It feels like they should be much more closely related based on how similar they look. And nobody talks about it.
I know.
Bryce doesn't mention it again.
Well,
she never showed, like, they have her phone. I'm like, why didn't you show pictures of your brother to these
I know.
people?
Yeah,
that
you're
would have
right.
shocked the hell out of them. She never does.
Rune and Rhys, they inherited shadows from the sisters because we know the sisters had light and shadows. But Rune inherited his shadows from his mother, from the Avalon side. But the Starborn has to be through the Autumn King because it's Bryce and Rune. So how does they have different mothers?
Thought that they were going to have Starborn.
I don't understand because Bryce.
They're probably cousins, like the monarchies in our world.
Ember wouldn't have been from
cousins.
Ember is so unrelated to any of that.
Yeah,
it would have to be through the Autumn King. But then how does and Rune looks just like his mother? So how does he look like Rhys? If the mother, if it's, I don't know. I'm confusing myself. I know that people have done family trees, but it still doesn't totally make sense to me.
Well, don't cry. Nothing else in the book tells us more about their family tree.
I love that.
Yep. So maybe that's what's coming in ACOTAR next, because there's a lot of questions left unanswered.
There are.
Like even looking at the power, because the Starborn, although my brain stopped.
What?
The shadows came from Aelin, so do the Starborn.
Because they had shadows and light.
Yeah. So there's still a connection to the Autumn King with all of that too. Although the Autumn King has fire magic, which is a connection back to Throne of Glass, or actually even to
the fire wielders that come over.
Well, it also, sorry, I said that, but it's also a connection to Lucian and Prythian and the Autumn Court there, because he's also the Autumn King here.
Yeah.
But
it's so confusing.
Why does he think that he has a connection to Starborn?
I don't know.
Or maybe he doesn't, but then how would it get? He has to, because how would it get past to Bryce? And if it's from Rune's mother's
That's what
line?
I'm saying. It has to be through the Autumn King if it's Rune and Bryce. But
that
then the shadows come from the Avalon. It's coming through Rune's mom. But then
the Starborn is still coming through the Autumn King somehow.
Yeah, but the Starborn is also shadows. They had both, right? I guess it could have been. I don't fucking know.
Yes, they have both.
I don't know. But
we do get some more information moving forward, but I would like a more specific family tree.
I would love a more detailed map with where the witches fucking live. And I would love a family tree with like little dotted lines with everyone, how they're connected. And I need to know more about Moore's family. I need to know more about what happened there, the history. And I don't think that Sarah can set up ACOTAR too much in this book, because not everyone reading ACOTAR is going to read Crescent City.
Yeah.
So it's going to be, I don't know how much it's going to factor in, but I do wonder if, we learned that the Daglin they fucked with the cauldron, they corrupted it. So maybe it was obsessed with Elaine, because Elaine can fix this. What we're about to learn is the kill switch. Can Elaine fix it? And that's why the cauldron was obsessed with her.
I mean, what the Asteri did to the cauldron, which we'll learn soon, will definitely be a major ACOTAR plot point.
It has to be, right? Or maybe it's obsessed with her because she's also corrupted. I don't know. Or maybe it just was, she went into the cauldron and it had been so long since it had something like pure.
Well, and I'll say she's so gentle that, maybe it was like a breath of fresh air, because she wasn't asking anything of the cauldron. Like most people going in, like, want power. And then
Nesta fucking took it.
Nesta
That's
was
why
like,
I love her. I still love her, like, one finger coming out and pointing at the King of Hybern.
That's a good scene.
I know. That's what I really want someone to, even if it's just animated, something. The female in the sarcophagus, she's kindly asked for help. JK, she's like, release me, slave. And that gives away what she really is, which is Daglin.
That's a no for me, dog.
No.
She does a sniff test and calls Bryce a mongrel, a slave and a slave of a slave, because she's half human, half fae. She also calls Az a foot soldier and demands he make the tithe.
Az is like,
excuse me?
She also smells Nesta and Bryce's connection to made objects, because this female is the creator of the Dread Trove.
Am I crazy? I thought that Thea had something to do with the Dread Trove creation.
She stole the Dread Trove from this female. And maybe the Dread Trove corrupted, like infected Thea in some way. But yeah, she she steals the objects from the different places that they're held, these like pockets of power, and that's how they defeat the Daglin.
Well, we know she stole the trove from the female Asteri that she served, but instead of killing her, Thea imprisoned her.
Yeah, we had been assuming this entire time that they were all dead.
Yeah,
but
so hopefully they can kill her.
Well, and now it's like, who knows? Like, what else is out there? You know,
it's a terrifying thought.
But don't get your hopes up on the reason that they kept her alive, because like with everything else we've learned about her, it's a disappointment. And something I like highlighted is it's okay. So I'm just gonna say her name because it's not like a huge. We're about to learn it anyway. Vesperus. She calls Bryce girl several times, and it's very Amryn coded. And the book is making Amryn look, more and more sus. Like the more we learn about the history of the prison and what we're about to learn about Vesperus and, Silene creating it and what she trapped in there, it kind of makes you side-eye Amryn.
I mean, Amryn was always kind of a side-eye, to be fair. But also Amryn's like 15,000 years older than any of them, so I could see why she would call any of them girl because they're so young.
Yeah, I don't think Bryce reacts too well.
Keeping her word, the Viper Queen is... Yeah, we've changed scenes again. Keeping her word, the Viper Queen is allowing Therion to leave the meat market with Deck, Flynn, and Ethan, who is still reeling from his involuntary manslaughter via beheading of Sigrid.
An accidental decapitation is wild.
Yeah.
It's very like Wolverine is what I kept picturing, is like they go through her neck and then that's the only thing keeping her neck on. And then as soon as he removes them, oops.
Yeah.
The crew are joined at the last minute by the 3 fire sprites who were like, go, go, go. Because they just casually burned down the meat market on their way out.
I didn't ask for this. Sorry.
I know. They're all like, what's going on? Oh, we just burned the meat market down.
But please come after me for it. The symbolism is great, but not everyone there was evil. Some were addicted to the Viper Queen's venom or just selling opals or their slaves.
And they had just finally left with the Viper Queen's blessing, or, not her blessing, but like her permission to leave. And this could have really changed things. Like the sprites could have really fucked them.
They did.
Oh, no.
Spoiler alert, sorry.
But hopefully it's like when Hunt burned down Bryce's apartment and like they got everybody out in some way, like the innocent people. But there are people down there in the fighting pits, like Juniper's brother, Julius or whatever, that, they don't have much of a choice to be there.
Such a simple option to quote fix it. And you're like, it's more
that's not fixing
complicated
anything.
than that. Yeah.
We know anytime there's like a vacuum of power that it's never good.
Back in the underground chamber, the female Daglin / Asteri is shocked to see Az has drawn a weapon, truth teller, against her. Excuse me, slave. What are you doing?
Against those who crafted you, soldier, from night and pain. First of all, what does that mean? This is kind of like when you're birthed from the void.
Yeah, this is very like Greek mythology. And you're like,
yes.
How?
You're made of night and pain.
Well, that covered it.
Does that mean that they have part Prince of Hell in them? I have to wonder.
Maybe.
I mean, it's what we guess, the Illyrians being the angel prototypes created by the Daglin. Like, this is kind of that confirmation. Because I'm assuming she's talking about the slave being Illyrian and not a shadow singer.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's the Illyrian portion.
Mm-hmm.
But the night reference feels more shadow singer than Illyrian.
Right.
And, of course, what we guessed about Analius, whose dagger she recognizes as carrying.
The female keeps asking if Finn or Thea or Analius sent them, but bitch, that was 15,000 years ago.
That's so long.
You got. Sorry. Thea was just petty and she kept you trapped instead of killing you just to literally just to be petty.
Yeah. Bryce asks Az for the Star Sword, hoping she could test it on this weakened Asteri, then go home and use it on Rigelus.
So Bryce is seeing the situation as less of a threat and more of an opportunity. Not only to test how to kill Asteri, but also for information. Like, this is a living link to the past. This isn't a hologram. This is someone you can ask questions and have dialogue with.
Well, I understand how scary it is for Az and Nesta. This is their world, but there's more of these and we have to find a way to kill them. So this is the opportunity. So without giving it any thought or talking to or warning Nesta and Az, Bryce lets this ancient evil out of her coffin because why not?
Which puts all of Prythian at risk, and it proves exactly what Az and Nesta, why they didn't trust her. Yeah. And I feel like Sarah was going for some Aelin level unpredictability here, But letting the Daglin out just came across very selfish, very reckless. And it was always endearing when Aelin did it, and this is not.
Aelin also thinks like 10 steps ahead, and
Mhm.
Bryce has barely
There
thought
was
ahead on
no
anything.
thinking in this. I mean, there have been times that Bryce has had like a secret side mission or plot going on, and it's worked out, like with Emil.
Yeah.
But this literally was like just not a thought in her head, lifts up the.
Like if this had been Aelin standing there, we've read enough about Aelin that I have faith that she can handle this bitch.
Mhm.
Whatever's going to be thrown at her, she's ready. She can fight it. Bryce, I don't know that I trust you with much.
Yeah.
So it's not a great scene. 'Cause I'm like, oh God, what are you doing? I mean, she
Yeah.
didn't even make Vesperus swear a bargain or anything.
Exactly.
She was
And
like, come on out.
nothing. Like you
There's no
could have.
wards. There's no protections. Come on.
It's so short-sighted.
Yes.
And I know her priority is getting back to her mate, getting back to her brother, but this could have backfired on her. Like she could have died and like never gone back.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, I don't know. It was not a good move.
I mean, Reese would have killed Bryce on the spot if he had known this was happening.
She's lucky that it's Az and Nesta. The two her are kind of more, I don't know if it's understanding or, but if it had been Reese or like maybe even Cassian, I don't think that Bryce would still be alive.
No.
They would have seen the threat and eliminated it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Nesta is definitely like, I'm a huge Nesta stan. And I think that she sees something in Bryce kind of like, like not really seeing herself, but
I think she likes that Bryce pushes the envelope and asks questions.
because Bryce could be a Valkyrie. Like she would fit in so well with that little crew and they could have friendship bracelets and everything. And I guess he's more of a thinker. Like he doesn't act just on.
Well, he gathers intel, so
Mhm.
he's watching to see what happens before he just reacts.
Mhm. And not only does Bryce open the coffin, but she summons the Star Sword away from Az, just like
Oops.
Thea did when she and Peleus killed Finn.
I mean, like calls to like.
Exactly. Vesperus is compared to a hatching spider as
So gross. Feels very Maeve again, though.
Exactly. As she climbs out of her coffin, her blowjob red lips deepen to a purple. She also uses the term world walkers, and I'm sure you can guess, like you've already said, where I'm going with this.
I mean, like each thing you say, I'm like, Maeve, yes.
Exactly.
Check. Maeve, check.
Vesperus is described as having skin glowing like the full moon. Maeve has moon white skin, literally. Both are raven-haired beauties with long fingers and red lips, and Vesperus's lips turn near purple, and Maeve has the violet eyes. And the Daglin Asteri's eyes are described as glowing several times. And there's also the black blood, and again, comparison to a spider.
Which could be a hint to Maeve's Stygian spiders.
Speaking of spiders, the Weaver is also compared to one, and she has black blood, and her name is Striga.
Yeah, which isn't Striga the like old... Oh my God.
Well,
like,
it sounds like Maeve's
it's an old word for witch.
handmaidens.
Oh, also
It sounds like
Stygian.
Mm-hmm. And to take it a step further, do you remember the silk that Feyre buys? It's like the Christmas special. I always forget the name of the book.
No, I haven't.
The lady she buys it from, she calls it the Void because the silk absorbs light.
Oh, it's a very Throne of Glass callback to those spiders.
Yeah, the silk that the spiders not sell but trade or whatever.
Yeah, the literal spider silk.
And to blow your mind, in Crown of Midnight, Selena is walking through the library and she sees a tapestry woven from red thread so dark it looks black, and she touches it and she marvels at the hue that it's so deep that it seems to swallow her fingers, and it sounds a lot like the silk that Feyre buys.
Wow.
I don't know if they're little Easter eggs or legitimate connections. I just think they're fun. Either way,
I
like when you
pointed that out.
Well, you start following all the little the threads, so like you start following the silk, and it's like all the spider connections. And I don't know if it means something deeper or if it really is just like fun little.
I mean, definitely just one of those moments that you're like, what does this mean?
What does it mean? Yeah.
So are there Valg and Prythian? Does this mean the Asteri, Daglin, or Valg?
Well, there are different species of Valg. The Valg were said to feed on fear, misery, and despair like wine. And that's very similar wording to the Daglin drinking the magic of the land like wine. They're both parasites. They're opposites, one needing light and one needing dark.
Yeah.
But the world that the Valg originated sounds like what Vesperus described when she's describing where they came from. She says that war destroyed their world and it led to world walkers.
And we've talked about the similarities between Rhys and Maeve and Rune.
So did someone in that line get a little Valg in them at some point? And remember how scared Rhys was of Nesta's silver flames? I mean, probably just because it was so destructive and she was not in control, but it also like, that's a little Valg.
Mm-hmm. The fear of the fire.
Yeah, and Valg can be in multiple places at the same time. Like imagine if the princes of hell are Valg. Because they're not all bad. Maeve said that they're not all bad.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Imagine if the ones we know, Apollyon, Adis, those are the Valg kings.
Imagine. Can you imagine?
Imagine.
I will say that Maeve didn't simply gaslight. Like the Asteri had to rewrite history to control people. She could just rip into your mind and change your memories.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different because the Daglin needed the Dread Trove because once they left their home world, their magic starts to dim. And I don't remember that being a problem for Maeve and the Valg.
No. Off the top of my head, I don't either.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know.
The Daglin found a way to amplify their power and imbued those gifts into the cauldron and made the trove, binding the very essence of the cauldron to the soul of the world, which means
one cannot exist without the other. If you destroy the cauldron, you destroy the world.
Yikes. That's a kill switch they've apparently given our worlds.
What it makes you, it's even scarier thinking back. They didn't know how high stakes when they were using the cauldron in the war.
Yeah.
And they had to fix it. It like that could have been, I would have
so much
worse. Bryce asked Vesperus about Rigulus, and she doesn't seem to know him very well. And it gives me the impression that he was not a major player. Like he kind of took advantage of what happened when he hopped over to Midgard.
Mm-hmm.
And Bryce asks if she's related to Hesperus, the evening star. And she's like, bitch, I am the evening star.
Hesperus said, new world, new me.
Right. Like she moved over to this other world and she's like, nice to meet you. I am the evening star.
I'm so different. I'm now Vesperus instead of Hesperus.
I know.
Nailed it. Sorry.
I just love that it's basically like she stole her identity.
It's like the being like, I'm no longer Elena. I'm Helena. Nice to meet you. They trade off questions, and Bryce tells Vesperus about the Asteri ruling Midgard and the poisoned water. Bryce asks how she can undo the water, kill the Asteri. But again, why would you think that Vesperus would help you?
And why would you trust anything she says?
Right.
She offers a trade. She'll answer Bryce's questions, and in return, Vesperus will be allowed to live in the middle, which is where Under the Mountain was and where the bog is now. When Bryce says it's not up to her, like, you know, Az and Nestor are standing there like, I don't think she has the right to make this deal, this trade. Vesperus is like, oh, just use the crown that this one has and control their minds. And Bryce is like, what?
Bryce doesn't know about any crown, just the mask.
Exactly.
So like, is that something else we need to look for now?
Excuse me?
Az pulls out Truth Teller, and Vesperus implies the Shadow Singer doesn't even really know how to use it.
And of course he doesn't, because he's been using it just like a dagger. He's like, the pointy end goes in the person.
This is what I stick you with.
It's just like the people of Prythian never searched under the mountains, where the Vesperus says the Daglin hid power. So again, these were kind of things that may have been something that could have been
if these places
dealt with earlier, but
underneath the world have the like Midgardian worm and all kinds of crazy creatures, you need some very strong fae to go exploring.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably part of what kept everybody out.
Yeah.
They're
the pockets
of power creatures are feeding off of. Yeah.
Which is like the worm absorbing Nesta's magic.
So that seems a little terrifying. Thea never understood how her gifts could be used to light up entire worlds, Vesperus tells Bryce.
And thank God she didn't know how to do that, because she would have.
That bitch did not need more information. But Bryce, who Vesperus calls Light Stealer, figured it out when she absorbed the power from the mountain.
Speaking of pockets of magic, they're literally standing on top of one, and no one realizes it.
Oh, good.
Until Light shoots in Vesperus. So she's been stalling this entire time. Like, she was never going to help y'all.
Why would her coffin be sitting right there of all places too?
It's so stupid.
Why would she's right next to something to help her power up? If she ever gets out, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Why did Thea do that?
Thea was a real short-sighted bitch sometimes.
God, I don't like Thea.
I know. Luckily, Nesta plunges Ataraxia into the bitch, causing her black blood to spray. So again, here's this character who's been, like not she, looking like a spider, like when she's coming out of the coffin.
Ugh.
With the moon white skin and the dark hair and the red lips and it's in black blood.
It just adds to all of our questions about what this means. And that's where we're going to pick up next week with chapters 26 to 30.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.